The night before the funeral smelled like dust and lilies, that strange blend of grief and artificial sweetness that clings to every room where love used to live. The house was too quiet, too clean. She'd been gone only 5 days, and yet it already felt like she'd been erased. Her laughter squebbed from the air, her perfume fading from the curtains. But one thing about my grandmother, Marjorie Vale, was that she never vanished quietly. They called her the matriarch of our family, not because she was the wealthiest or loudest, but because she carried secrets like currency. If she loved you, you knew it. If she didn't, you found out eventually. And me? She used to say, "I see myself in you, Nora." I believed her. Every Christmas, she'd pull me aside, hand me some small trinket, a brooch, a silver bookmark, a lace scarf, and whisper, "Someday, all this will be yours." It wasn't about the money, it was about the validation. In a family full of sharp smiles and subtle betrayals, she made me feel chosen. Until the will was read. It was a Thursday afternoon, gray and sterile, in a lawyer's office that smelled faintly of mildew and toner. My mother sat stiff beside me, eyes red but dry. Across from us, my cousin Clara Vale leaned back in her chair, her manicure gleaming like polished blood. Clara had always been the favorite on paper, the Ivy League graduate, the socialite, the picture-perfect daughter. I was the quiet one who worked in a library and preferred the company of books over brunches. But I knew Grandma's affection hadn't been for show. When the attorney, Mr. Linton, began reading, I barely breathed. To my granddaughter, Clara Vale, I leave the Vale estate, including the home and all its holdings. I blinked. No, that couldn't be right. I waited for my name, for my share, for some acknowledgement, but there was nothing. Not a word, not even a mention of the pendant she'd once said was mine. It was as if I'd been edited out of her life completely. Clara smiled. Not wide enough to seem cruel, but enough that I caught it. That little upward twitch, the one she used when she thought she'd won. My throat tightened. I didn't say anything. Not there, not then. I signed the acknowledgement forms, thanked Mr. Linton, and walked out as though my heart hadn't just been hollowed out with precision. But something inside me, something stubborn and sharp, refused to accept it. Grandma was meticulous. She planned everything, down to the way her garden was watered and her recipes cataloged. She wouldn't have changed her will without reason, and she certainly wouldn't have left me with nothing. That night, I returned to her house. Everyone else was busy preparing for the funeral. The doors were unlocked. My uncle had been coming and going to organize things. The air inside was still heavy with her scent, rosewater and cedar. I walked through the room slowly, touching the walls, tracing the grooves on her old mahogany desk. And then I found it, a drawer that didn't quite close all the way. Inside, an envelope, yellowed and creased, marked in her handwriting, Draft 1, Will and Testament. My heart stuttered. I slid it open carefully. There, on the first page, was her unmistakable handwriting. To my dearest granddaughter, Nora Vale, whom I trust with my heart, my home, and my legacy. The next pages outlined exactly what I'd expected. She'd left me the house, the jewelry, the trust fund, the same things Clara now claimed. I didn't want to believe what the evidence suggested, but the realization crept in like cold water. Someone had switched the documents, and there was only one person who stood to gain from it. I spent the next 2 days in silence, pretending grief had swallowed me whole. At the funeral, Clara made a spectacle of herself. The tears, the trembling hands, the dramatic pauses for effect. Everyone adored her performance. She was like a mother to me, Clara said to anyone who'd listen. I just hope she's proud of me now. I watched from the corner of the room, my grandmother's original will folded in my purse like a secret weapon. That night, during the family gathering, I decided to use it, not in anger, in truth, because Grandma believed in the power of truth. She always said it was the only thing that couldn't be taken from you. After dinner, the air turned thick with boredom and polite conversation. I waited until the chatter died down, until the wine had made everyone's edges soft. Then I stood. "I found something," I said. Every head turned. Clara looked up from her phone, her smile stiffening. "Now, Nora, this isn't the time." "It is," I said quietly. "It's exactly the time." I took out the envelope and laid it on the table. "This," I said, "is Grandma's first will, the one she wrote before someone tampered with it." Gasps, murmurs. My aunt dropped her fork. Clara's face drained of color. "What are you talking about?" she snapped. "That's absurd." I unfolded the letter. Grandma's personal note. The ink was faded, but the words were clear. "My darling Nora, you were always the one who understood me, who saw me not as a relic of the past, but as a person still capable of love, laughter, and mischief. Whatever happens, remember, integrity is inheritance enough. But still, I want you to have this house. You'll know what to do with it." The room fell silent. Clara's eyes darted to the letter, then to me. "That's fake," she hissed. Mr. Linton, who'd been invited to the gathering for closure, cleared his throat. "I recognize Mrs. Vale's handwriting. I've seen it often." I turned to Clara. "You said you helped her finalize the will, didn't you?" Her mouth opened, then closed. "Funny," I continued, "because Grandma died the next morning. You had access to her files that night, and the will you submitted was typed, no signature, just a copy." My uncle leaned forward, frowning. "Is that true, Clara?" She stammered. She told me to type it, said her hands hurt too much to sign properly." "Then why did she sign this one?" I lifted the letter. Her silence was answer enough. When the room erupted, accusations, denials, demands, I stayed still, watching her crumble under the weight of her own performance. Finally, Clara broke. "She told me it was temporary," she cried, "that she'd fix it later. I just made sure it said what she really wanted." The words hung there, damning and pathetic. Mr. Linton spoke first. "That's a felony, Miss Vale. You're admitting to falsifying a legal document." She gasped. "I didn't. But it was too late. Her voice dissolved beneath the noise of shocked whispers, and I just stood there, holding my grandmother's letter, feeling her presence in the quiet between breaths. The following weeks were chaos. The estate was frozen. Lawyers were called. Tests were run on the ink, the signatures, the timestamps on the files Clara had submitted. Every lie unraveled neatly, like thread from a spool. She'd used Grandma's stationery, her laptop, her access to legal software. The motive was greed and jealousy, because Grandma had chosen me, and Clara couldn't stand that. The court eventually reinstated the original will. The house, the trust, the possessions, all came to me. But victory didn't feel the way I thought it would. When I walked through Grandma's house again, my house, it felt hollow. Every corner whispered memories. Every room carried the echo of her voice. I sat in her favorite chair one evening, reading her note again. Integrity is inheritance enough. It struck me then that maybe she'd known this would happen. Maybe she'd left that draft behind on purpose, for me to find, a final test, and I'd passed. Clara fled the city not long after the ruling. She avoided prison. Too many connections, too many favors called in. But her reputation was in ruins. Last I heard, she was living in some small town, teaching etiquette classes to middle schoolers. Sometimes I wonder if she ever thinks of Grandma, if she ever remembers the look on everyone's faces when I read that letter aloud, the gasps, the silence, the truth. It was the sound of justice breathing. Now, years later, the house doesn't feel haunted anymore. I restored it, slowly, carefully. Every renovation, a conversation with her memory. I turned the study into a small writing room filled with sunlight and books, and on the desk sits that same letter, framed behind glass, not as proof of victory, but as a reminder that love, when betrayed, has a way of finding its way back to truth, And that revenge, when rooted in honesty, doesn't destroy, it restores. Sometimes I still hear her voice when I water the garden. I see myself in you, Nora. And I whisper back, you should. I finally learned to fight the way you did, quietly, but with purpose. The house on Wren Hill Avenue isn't just mine now. It's hers. It's ours. Every creak, every shadow, every whisper of wind through the rose bushes carries the same message. Some legacies aren't written in wills. They're written in truth. And truth, once spoken, echoes forever.
You've just stepped into her revenge side, where every wound finds its justice, and every silence ends with truth. If her story struck a chord, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Your support keeps these stories alive. Another secret waits in the next video. See how her revenge begins.